Hello and welcome to another video about stuff that helped with my Eudemonia or flourishing. So, I've got another book here. This book had a really big impact on my life's flourishing, and really, started a domino effect. So there was a whole load of philosophy studies that started as a result of this particular book. So this is Philosophy Made Simple. It was originally, when did this come out? So this would have been 1986. So obviously I bought this sometime after that date. I suspect it would have been sometime between that date and certainly the end of the 80s. And I just devoured this book. So this particular series of books, and you've probably seen books like this. So the Made Simple books always had this style of cover on them, with the sort of orange, yellow, and then the black. I've got one upstairs I think is like Economics Made Simple. At some point, I don't even know if I still have it. There was a programming book and a whole series of them, and if you look at the front of the book you'll see, I think, it is all the series. So Accounting Made Simple, and so on. Computer programming languages in practice, and the list just goes on. We've got statistics here, you can see that. And these were super popular in the UK, particularly if you wanted to learn a subject, but weren't particularly at that point going down the route of taking a formal course, although these books could be used to support a course. They could be used as course material. And in reading this book, this, as I've just mentioned, sort of set off a series of like a domino effect. And as a result of this and seeing the different things that were name checked in it, I moved on to reading various Penguin classics, of which here are a few. So Blaise Pascal's Pensies, Jean-Jacques Rousseau's A Social Contract, Candide by Voltaire, Ethics by Aristotle, and I'm trying to remember which ethics this is, because there are a couple. Don't know if it specifically references it in here. Anyway, and then Plato's The Republic, in no particular order. I can't remember the order in which I read those. I think I started off with Plato's Republic. As you can see, these are fairly well worn and quite yellowy now after years of service. So once I worked my way through there and also picked up a copy of The Essential Descartes, I then discovered the Rutledge Classics series of books. So this is one in my collection. I've got a number of other ones. And this is obviously Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy. It's quite an old book, as are a lot of the books in the Rutledge Classics series, because they effectively reprint an awful lot of old philosophy books. And let me think of some examples of the sort of stuff that crop up in that series. So you've got books by Francis Yates about Leonardo Bruni and occult philosophy and the Rosicrucians. You've got books by Eric Fromm, like The Fear of Freedom and the Sane Society, Immanuel Kant's The Moral Law, Jean Piaget, The Psychology of Intelligence, and so on. So, you know, the Rutledge Classics, if you're not familiar with them, span a number of different disciplines, of which philosophy is one of them. And so, yeah, the other one that's on there is, of course, Being and Nothingness, Jean-Paul Sartre. After doing that, I then became really interested in the philosophy of mind, and probably sometime around, what was it, 2000s. You can see I've got a fairly well-worn book here, Consciousness and Introduction by Susan Blackmore. And I was sort of interested both in the philosophical approach of this book and also the other aspects to do, like the physical structure of the brain and the science behind everything, and also some of the sort of more spiritual side of this. And this was a great book for sort of starting me off down that particular route, down the route of philosophy of mind in particular. And then sometime later, when I moved to Nova Scotia, up to that point I'd not done any formal studies or any formal qualifications in philosophy. It had all been as a sort of hobby. But what I did do was I enrolled on a distance learning course with Oxford University on philosophy of mind, and this was the course book that we had to purchase to help with our studies. So I basically did a 12-week course on the philosophy of mind, which is part of they do a whole load of philosophy courses, philosophy short courses that last 12 weeks. They're about, at the time, they were around about £250 each. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, £250 each was around 500, just under 500 Canadian. So not cheap to do, and certainly not as cheap as some of the courses I've done on the Open University, which I'm sure I'll talk about on a separate video. After that, I then started to look a bit more systematically at the history of philosophy generally, and this book's been invaluable. So this is one of DK's wonderful books. I love these DK books in this style, and it literally goes through from the ancient world, 700 BCE, up to reasonably recent, because the book's a bit old now, and we get up to, who does it finish off with? Oh, Slavojek Zizek, whatever you pronounce his name. So yeah, and there is a smaller version of this, a small paperback as well, which takes out some of the not so well known philosophers and just sticks with some of the better known. And it is literally, it's more a history of particular ideas that certain philosophers have. It really revolves around one of their ideas, and then has a number of pages on that, rather than exploring the whole their whole work. And they all have this sort of quote or idea that's attributed to the particular philosopher, and invariably they'll have like a flow diagram as well, although a lot of the single page ones don't. And they may have like a key work section. Again, if you move to, I don't know, let me find someone fairly recent got up. So I'm moving through this systematically, a philosopher a week, and it's taken me quite a while to get this far. So I just spend one day a week, read this, make some notes, and then read around, listen to some podcasts if there are any out there, watch a bit of YouTube, just familiarise myself with the particular concept that they're talking about. So where you've got the one pages, the format is really just, you have this in context box, the attributed concept or quote, the name of the particular philosopher, the date they were alive, a little bit of blurb, and then see alsos. For the larger treatments in here, there was a previous one on. I was getting up to Bertrand Russell actually, seeing as we'd already mentioned him. Oh, maybe, yeah. So Karl Popper's actually a better example. So you can see here's one where you've got the flow chart, whatever you want to call it, and then the key works as well. So yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting through that. I'm also doing a parallel reading project where I'm sort of looking at some of the sort of key texts as well, which I'm going to start reading, starting off with rereading Plays of the Republic. And then in the last couple of years, I bought this book, which is really a fascinating book. Brian McGee, if you don't know him, he's no longer alive. He was a philosopher, and he's done a number of things in his life, but he did a couple of very well-received television series on philosophers that ran in the BBC sometime in the 70s and 80s. And this is it's a combination autobiography, but encompassing aspects of Western philosophy, but from the eyes of someone that's studying it and having to talk about it. So there's some interesting stuff about his time at the university and various universities, and I found it just really interesting to see his reflections as a sort of, someone that was engaged and had spoken to certain philosophers throughout his career. I think most of the episodes from the programs that he did are actually on YouTube, and there is an accompanying book which I've got upstairs, which has got all the conversations in there. There's also a book he wrote called The Story of Philosophy, which is also available on DK, and that goes through various key philosophers. Not as many as in that other DK, the philosophy book, but nonetheless. So yeah, I thought that would just be an interesting video to do about how my interest in philosophy started, and where I currently am, although of course there's much bigger details to that, but the idea of these videos is to try and make them relatively short. I think I'm having some success in keeping them under 15 minutes, but we'll see how that continues. Anyway, thanks once again for watching this video. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in the next one.